I'm KB, and welcome back to my gaming channel. This is going to be video 3 of Wolves of the Westwind. We finished up Act 2, and my last little recording, same night, jumping into another hour. This video might be a little bit longer. I'm going to go for as long as I can, for a little bit longer, probably another hour, and you might see this video split between a couple of days. But we are on a boat. We're on a boat. I got cursed by a demon cat that had nothing to do with me. I got cursed because, I don't know, the Thorwallians got their own magic, curse, jujutsu, whatever going on. Let's just get in it. Let's just get into it. Let's just get into it. We on the boat with Owen Gunner, his people. Now it looks like there's multiple boats. There's this just different parts of the boat, and it's just like it's levels to this. All right, get to work. On your first full day aboard the Keenwolf, Gunnar puts you and your companion straight to work, but the other members of his crew have their own plans for you too. Start. Get to work. With your first morning aboard the Keenwolf over, you expect or perhaps hope to feel less groggy than you do. On deck, the cold, crisp air and blazing sunshine at least alleviate some of the fatigue. But they do nothing against the aches and pains of the night. Even compared to your recent time on the road, this form of traveling is grating on you, and you hope you can adjust. It is relatively quiet on deck. I've only ever been on a ferry, and that was fine. I didn't get seasick or anything, but it is different than any other mode of transportation. And I can see when it, like, really hits people that they get seasick or, like, nervous. Like, I don't know if I would prefer, like, traveling by sea or by air. I don't know which one would, like, unnerve me. Because, like, I get super nervous flying on planes, but I think a lot of it is just the stress of flying. A handful of the crew mind the sails and the ship's steering. A lookout wanders up and down and across the deck. Everyone else is below, staying out of the autumn sun and resting while they can. For all of the tension in the last couple of days of your life, it is all very oddly serene. Estrid stands off to one side, alone, and leaning on the railing as she looks out towards the west. Before you reach her, you hear a whistle and turn to see Gunnar leaning over the railing of the quarterdeck to talk to you. Grab your friend, you have work to do. With that, he is gone from view again, and you're left to collect your companion. Estrid! She looks a little startled as you walk up to her, as though your call shook her from deep thought. But the look is quickly gone, and she steels herself with a curt nod as you join her at the ship's starboard side. I'm surprised it took us this long to run into each other, Outlander. It's not a big ship. Are you alright? I want to know what's up with her. What were you thinking about? Are you alright? I am. It's just, this is not where I expected to be today. It is all still quite fresh and quite surreal. The two of you take a moment to look out over the calm and sparkling sea. In truth, you've tried not to dwell on the details of the evening's developments. Me neither. No, I definitely did not expect this either. You give careful thought to your words before you say them. But here we are. We'll need to be careful. I didn't have any plans. We'll need to be careful. Trust no one, Estrid. I kinda trust Estrid though. She seems like she's cool, calm, and collected. She's always thinking rationally. So I trust Estrid. We'll need to be careful from now on, and keep an eye out for one another. Indeed. If we had done as I suggested in Halvik, you might already realize I'm quite capable. If we do keep an eye out for each other, as you put it, this will all be much easier for us both. She looks across to you with a quizzical look, waiting for your response. Gunnar is waiting for us. Don't try me. Gunnar is waiting for us. Apparently we have work to do. Estrid's face twists into a cynical smile at your lack of an answer, but she nods and pushes herself from the guardrail. Like, I'm gonna do me. At the end of the day, I trust you. We gonna look out for each other. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna do me. Trust. Trust that. Well then, we should not keep him waiting. Come on. Gunnar is still pacing around the quarterdeck, talking quietly to the helmswoman while he waits for you. When he sees you, he scowls at you both impatiently. You took your time. Don't make habit of that. Come with me. Gunnar scurries off, leading you below deck with some surprising pace when everything around him is so calm. As you walk past other members of the crew, you notice you're already starting to recognize some of their faces. And you notice that they're still quick to glance away from you to pretend they aren't staring. Is your crew nervous? Where's over? What are we doing? What's wrong with your crew? What's wrong with your crew? Because I don't trust them. What's going on? Why are they looking but hiding? Why are they looking but hiding? Is your crew always so nervous? Or are they just suspicious of us? Gunnar laughs loudly. We weren't expecting newcomers. I suppose when you live on a ship, you get used to the company you have. This is home to us, and you're outsiders. You actually do live on the ship? You don't hail from a town or have a camp on the coast? We do, for many years now. Why else would we need a ship this big? Estrid's uneasy look makes you feel uneasy too, as you continue to follow Gunnar down through the ship. As the only one aboard the Keenwolf who isn't a Thorwaller, you are expecting to feel like a stranger. The fact that Estrid is so uneasy around these people too, though, it only makes you feel even more out of place. The dimly lit cargo hold is on the Keenwolf's lowest deck. It seems like they don't trust Estrid, like, for outside, like, other reasons. But I'm curious as to what that is. The dimly lit cargo hold is on the Keenwolf's lowest deck. It is below the waterline, and it is where you can hear the creaks and yawns of the hull at their loudest. First and foremost, I need to know how many days it will be before we start to go hungry. But if we're also missing any particular supplies, I need to know that too. The space is full of boxes, crates, and barrels of different sizes, strewn about lazily. Netting, rigging, and spare sailcloth also lie about the place. Some camping supplies too. Some, but not all of it, is tied to the floor or bulkhead with thick, heavy ropes to make sure it doesn't tip in a storm. And it all stinks of fish, enough to make you cover your nose at the stench of it. There's another smell behind it too, rot. It isn't as strong as the fishy smell, but it's still enough to warn you your work won't be pleasant. Anything that we can't eat and any equipment we can't use should be separated from the plunder. Anything we can't should be thrown in the ocean. With you two on board, there are 34 people eating once a day. We should have enough weapons, but count the spares anyway, just in case. What is already rotting? What about the plunder? We'll get it done. What about the plunder? Should we do anything with the plunder? Good point. I suppose we might be able to sell some of it on houses or trade it for other supplies should we need them. Count that too. And when you're done, tell me what we've got. With that, he storms back up the stairs and leaves you and Estrid alone. She sniffs at the air as you step up to one of the barrels and rips the lid off, leaning backwards to avoid the smell. It smells like gravhage. You know what this is, Estrid? You be eating this too? It's like a seasoning, I suppose. We leave fish to cook in the sun, collect the juices and strain them, and then mix what remains with a little fruit. That's nasty. That's disgusting. Yeah, I would not eat that. That sounds like it's gonna have your stomach toe up. I would not eat that. That's don't do that. What is it? Just some lettuce on here? I can eat some lettuce. Y'all got lettuce somewhere? Estrid chuckles as she opens her own barrel. Welcome to Thorwall. The barrel she opens is packed differently to yours. Yours is full of the brim with fish that lie on a bed of small, translucent crystals of salt. Okay, that's not too bad. In Estrid's, each individual fish has been salted and dried, leaving far more room for fish and no bad smell. Okay, but she got the dried fish. That's smart. This will take some time. Digging through all of this to check every fish will make some time. It is safe to say the woodfish this here in my barrel won't be rotten. It can't rot. It's too dry. That's exactly why we prepare it so. But not the Nostrian supplies. I'm not even sure why they have been kept at all. Why not just bring more woodfish? You dig through the top layers of the salt, grinding your teeth as you feel gunge underneath your fingers. You carefully inspect the fish as Estrid closes her barrel and moves on to a straw-filled crate lying nearby. They do not look rotten to the eye. Let's see. What did you expect? The strangeness adds up. I don't know what she's talking about. What do you expect? The strangeness adds up. We are only one day aboard and strange things are starting to add up. We've been told to do this by Gunnar even though Orville is the hetman. That is another thing. A het person is more than just someone who gives orders, but yes, I did expect more from him with all that I've heard. I have not seen him once since we came aboard. Yeah, because something wrong with him. He's sick or something. I know what they talking about. They talking about, and how that's strange. Okay, I got you. I'm following. What is this? You turn to see Estrid pull a weapon from inside the crate she is examining. It is a sword that is clear. though the hilt is wrought in a design you've never seen before. I've never seen such a thing before. It doesn't belong to you. Okay, who are you? Okay, we were told to come down here and count weapons and do stuff. We doing our work. You coming down here giving shade and attitude. Who is you? Raider? Who are you? Everybody want to be Thor. Everybody, all the dudes in this game want to be Thor, and none of them are Thor. None of them are Thor. None of you are Chris Hemsworth. Relax. You both turn to the stairs to see a stranger blocking the way up out of the room. He's a broad-shouldered man, well-built and well-armed, and he's soon joined by a woman, equally as athletic, wearing similarly worn and weathered armor. At the sight of them, Estrid lets out a frustrated sigh and throws the sword back in its crate. Turning to face head-on, she rolls her shoulders and stretches the muscles in her necks. What is this? Who are you? Who y'all? Who are you? What's going on? It's the man who replies as the pair of them remove their weapons from their belts and throw them on the ground. My name is George. They both loosen and stretch their arms as they square up to you. Really? Really? Y'all ain't got nothing to do? I thought it was a bunch of stuff we had to do on the boat. Y'all ain't got nothing to do? Y'all coming down here? It's already gonna take us all day to count this damn fish. And y'all coming down here wanting to square up. Put your hands down, miss. Put your hands down. You ain't even said nothing. And George, standing opposite you, flashes you a dangerous and wild grin. Clearly it's a challenge to some kind of brawl. You would love to be able to go just one day soon where you didn't have to face down a Thorwallian warrior. Strike first, react to his strikes. Let's try to talk them down. I don't think we have to crack. You're sent staggering backwards as your opponent Oh, I lost health? The fuck? Crack, you've been staggering backwards. Your strikes. I'm mad. You really hit me, bro? You're stunned by the force of his strike and have to take a moment to shake your head clear. Come on. He seems confident enough to wait for you to reset for you to take him on even footing. As with every opponent before him, he's better built and probably better trained than you are. You'll have to whittle him down if you want to win. Go on the attack. With a little more confidence, you step forward into some kind of maintained assault, hoping to tire him out. His defense is not very strong, and he seems to prefer simply taking a hit over wasting energy on blocks and dodges. You hit quicker, with more variety, trying to keep him off guard, but you can sense he's finding his footing. If you hold any kind of advantage, you will have to use it quickly or risk losing it. Oh, what do I do? Press the advantage. Let's lose some, you know what? We're gonna use some magic. You don't give yourself time to think as your eyes fall on a shield of unfamiliar design, lent up against the bulkhead. While your opponent is distracted, you focus all of your attention on the shield, stretching your arms toward it. It flies into your hand just as your challenger growls and aims at an angry punch at the bridge of your nose. His knuckles crack against the wooden face of the shield, and he recoils, crying as he clutches his fingers. Dropping the shield, you give yourself a second to grin from ear to ear and silently thank Brand for his advice. We finna do Blinding Fash. Hopefully we don't run into nothing else where I need this magic, because I want to enjoy my magic. Riled up, you immediately move into the next spell, not wanting to give this raider a chance to fight back. He cries out as he is blinded, and you knock him to the floor with the most powerful punch you can muster. A second later, you hear a sharp cry, and look across to see Estrid using her elbow to strike her challenger down too. Alright, I've seen enough. Your attention snaps across the stairs where you see a tall and muscular woman now sitting. You recognize her from your arrival on the Keenwolf, the one who'd ask you to join in the hunt for the fiend. Yeah, I know, I remember her. You can go, George. The raider who challenged you brushes himself down and gives you one last vindictive stare. Without another word, he snatches his weapons back up and turns to leave in somewhat of a rush. He embarrassed. He should be. I'm a baby mage, and you got folded. The woman who followed him mutters to the newcomer before she follows him with one last look at you. The remaining stranger continues to observe you in silence until it becomes clear that neither of you will speak. They went easy on you because Gunnar wants you ready for anything. Otherwise, that might have gone quite differently. You shield away from the fight at the beginning. We'll expect better than that when it really starts. But you fought well enough, I think. And you certainly know how to bring it into a fight. Who is you exactly? Exactly! Me and Estrid! You coming down here spouting? We don't even know your name. Swaff... Okay. That's why we don't know your name. Swafniled. Swafniled. That's not that bad. Swafniled. I said that correctly. I lead our raiding parties. Did you have to do that? Did we pass your test? Did we pass your little test? Did we pass your little test? Did we pass your little test? That's exact. Did we pass your little test? Did we pass your little test? Did we get an A? You impressed. But the true test will come when we face real enemies. Then we'll see. I have other things to do, but we'll see each other again. They act like we want to be here. We don't want to be here. Like, we don't have to prove anything because we don't want to be here. We don't want to do this. I don't know. She pauses as she stands. Then she turns to Estrid and says something in quick, harsh Thorellian. Estrid glances sharply from her to you and back again, then gives you a succinct response. With that, Swafnil turns back to you. When you've got some time, come and find me. We should talk more. With that, she's gone, and by the heavy footfalls on the wood, you're left unsure as how she snuck up on you before. You turn to Estrid as silence falls from the ship for a moment. That was odd. What did she say? What did she say to you? Yeah. Estrid keeps watching after Swafnil until she disappears from sight, and only then she gives you any kind of answer. You should wait until you've spoken to her about that. With that, she turns back to the crates and that have been pushed around in the room in the scuffle. We need to get back to work. There's a lot to do now that all of that is over. The work is long and arduous and takes you well out of the afternoon into the evening. You break only when the smell of strong scent of cooking from somewhere above you, and then you're straight back to it. Sorting the food is most difficult, and by the end of it all, you are stained with flecks of salt. In comparison, sorting the equipment and the plunder is straightforward, if no less tiring. But then comes the lifting. To and from the cargo hold, you go up 2 flights of stairs to the deck, where the sun now hangs low in the west. Enlist help. Don't enlist help. Don't ask for no help. They're not gonna help us. On the way back down from your first trip, you glance up to see Gunnar watching you closely from the quarterdeck. In the fading light, you see him grimace as you pass underneath his line of sight, back towards the cargo hold. He, like everyone else, is keeping a close eye on you then. It feels like at least another hour before your work is finally done. You hear a loud call from above to lower the anchor stone as you're tying down the last of it all. Compared to how it began, the cargo hold looks like a masterpiece now. Plunder on one side, equipment at the back, and the crates and barrels of food deemed fresh enough to keep on the other side. The space seems roomier for all of your effort, but you feel the punishment in your bones. Behind you, Gunnar reappears, chuckling softly. So, what do we have? The equipment all seems good condition, though there isn't much of it. There's certainly enough plunder to sell in Halsingor. What about food? Enough for about 2 weeks. Is that enough? What was the plan? That's with small meals. I feel like if I say it with small meals, he's gonna get mad. And asking what the plan is for the stuff, for us, like, what are we asking about, like, actually? And then, is that enough seems more direct, like, I know what we're talking about. Is that enough? That's what I'm gonna go with. Is that going to be enough? We can always exchange some of the plunder for more in Halsinger, but if there's a storm and we're blown off course, there might be some trouble. You've done good work today, but you should have asked for help, at least with the lifting. We are one crew. If we cannot depend on each other, the ocean will probably kill all of us. Okay, you should have told us that before. Because I don't trust y'all. Y'all sent people down here to literally fight us. You think I'm gonna ask y'all for help now? Come on. I thought it was a test. We'll keep that in mind. I thought it was a test. Y'all testing us today. I thought it might be another test to see if we were good enough for your crew. But you're not on your own, and you'll depend on us while you're here as much as we'll depend on you. Besides, you'll have plenty of chances to prove yourself in the days to come. You've earned some rest. Keep an ear out for the morning call. Work will begin again then. Okay. Okay, so now I have 2 choices. I could talk to this old man or I could talk to Estrid. I'm gonna talk to Estrid first. Out of depth. Though she was raised to be a leader in Icewell, even Estrid is having trouble adjusting to live amongst the raiders on the Keenwolf. Out of depth. You and Estrid sit down on opposite sides of the table that hangs suspended from the ceiling by a big metal chain. Without a word to each other, you both begin to eat and drink. It has been a particularly grueling day of work, and you're both exhausted. All either of you want to do is take a moment to relax now that you have a chance to sit down. And the food is good, particularly with the wait after such a day. Even the wine, which is usually dry and stale, tastes a little more refreshing than usual. The plan is to renew the supply when you reach Halsinger, and until then, you all just make do. The only thing that is slightly off-putting is the look that you and Estrid are getting from the rest of the crew. See, they giving us dirty looks and stuff, sending people to fight us, but we supposed to put our trust in them and ask them for help. Nah. You have seen it before. It is the same look you saw being given to Olver and Gunnar when they entered the hall in Eisfell. A look of distrust and discomfort. Even after some time aboard the Keenwolf now, the crew still seem more than a little tepid towards you. You glance back to Estrid, trying to gauge whether she has noticed the same thing. Doesn't this bother you? I wish they'd stop staring. They still don't trust us. They still don't trust us very much, do they? They don't have a lot of reason to, the way they see it. You both speak quietly as not to draw more attention to yourselves. And I'm sure the fiend is not helping either. We have brought a bad omen aboard the ship with us. Oh, that's true. Because I would be kind of sketched out if strangers, like, literally come into my home, because the ship is their home. They live there. And they got a demon cat following them. That would tick me off too. Thorwall is generally and very honest, open, and accepting place. But Thorwallers see a big difference between that and traveling together or fighting together. It is not that help is not appreciated, just that it must come from a worthy source. And it is up to each of us to prove it if we can help or not. Not for others to simply believe it in goodwill. Ah, that's trash. You detect just the slightest sense of frustration in Estrid's voice as she explains. Daring to glance back at the raiders, you see they have all gone back to their own meals. You asked for my help. How do we build trust? You don't agree. Yeah, you asked. Well, that's because they believe in them rocks in the bowl. They believe in the rocks in the bowl. That's why they asked. They ain't really asked. I felt like they gave me an ultimatum. They didn't really ask. How do we build trust? That's what I'm put there. How do we build trust? How are we supposed to prove ourselves then to build up that trust? There's little we can do while we're stuck aboard the Keenwolf. Estrid's eyes quickly flick across the room elsewhere for a moment before she purses her lips. Is that what she said? Is that what I read? I don't know. Again, it makes me wonder why they even live like this. They must only make things more difficult for themselves. It is certainly food for thought while you continue to eat and drink. When Estrid is done with her food, she pushes the bowl out of the way and rubs her eyes. I don't know about you, Outlander, but I could use some fresh air. Perhaps it is the food and wine, but you are beginning to feel even more tired than you did when you sat down. That would help, yes. That would certainly help. Somehow, since going to Auschwitz, I keep finding ways to reach new levels of exhaustion. That makes Estrid laugh as she's trying to stifle a yawn. Come on. The galley crew have already started washing the bowls, goblets, and cutlery. They are getting back. Who are these two? Who are y'all? You thank them for the meal as they return your own items and leave the galley in a lethargic pace. My father always likes to say that sleep is for the weak. He often works early into the morning when he can. I am not sure if he ever really understood that even the greatest warrior might be swept off their feet by exhaustion. And Rasker is the same, now that he's older. You have to sleep behind her as you funnel through... You have to step behind her as you're funneled through the doorway into the commons. You respect strength. I'm far from an expert. They should know better. I am far from an expert. This is not me. This is not what I do. I am a baby mage. I never did no stuff like this. Pentagram Academy does not exactly specialize in the art of war and combat. I know very little about such things. Basically, what I have learned on the road, and since Isle is fell. How important the ability to endure is, I don't know. Endurance is very important. I think that too. Estrid seems to be filled with a new sense of enthusiasm for the discussion as she nods at you. But it cannot be so important that we all exhaust ourselves before the fight has ended. Otherwise, we will be defeated. She shrugs at you, She shrugs as you come up the stairs that will take you to the Keenwolf's main deck. I simply think that sometimes we underestimate the importance of being well rested. There is an alive and relaxed atmosphere out on deck. It's quite busy, and you see some familiar faces out and about, but much of the space between the stairs and the main mast is being given a wide berth. A crowd has gathered to watch two raiders wrestling against each other on the deck. Estrid turns to you as you see it, talking quietly as you both make your way around the watching crowd. See? Raskier would love this. Some of the raiders have been practicing for most of the day. Swafnilld, it seems, likes to make sure her raiders are in top form. You and Estrid even took part for a little while between other duties earlier in the day. How they are still going is a little bit of an amazement. They're over-practiced. At least they'll be ready. It fills the time. Yeah, I guess it fills the time. At the very least, it fills the time for people. Yes, and it could be a great morale boost too. Up to a point. As you take up a good spot to watch the contest, you see raiders trying to tackle each other. That's the girl that jumped us earlier. One you recognize is the woman who took on Estrid when Swafnilld came to test you. Her opponent seems to be struggling to keep his footing, quickly pushed back towards the mast. With a heave, she pins him against it, ducking underneath a wild swing before punching him in the stomach. Someone at the front of the crowd shouts out a word you can't catch, and the rest of them clap loudly. The two raiders hastily disengage, walking back towards the middle of the loosely formed ring. This raider again. What is this exercise? Just simple sparring. You must get past your opponent's defense a certain number of times to win the bout. And by the look on his face, I would say it is not going well for him so far. Once again, the raiders go at each other, and once again, the man can't stop being pushed back. Whatever he is trying to do, it seems too slow and too clumsily against a much better opponent. This time, it ends with him being knocked to the floor right at Estrid's feet. A cut from a punch on his cheek. Estrid sighs and helps him back up, holding him back by the shoulder as the crowd applauds again. You keep trying to take her head on. Place yourself side on and put your weight on your back leg to keep yourself stable. Then, when she goes to tackle you, just move out of the way and strike from behind. The raider looks confused and flustered as he listens to Estrid giving him pointers. His opponent looks at the exchange with arms outstretched too. Around you, the crowd slowly goes quiet as all eyes fall on Estrid. What's this supposed to be? To her credit, Estrid doesn't let the pressure of all the staring get to her as she looks around to reply. Just some pointers to make this a bit more of a fair fight. We might as well take the time to help people improve, yes? I don't need help hetling. There is very obvious ring of contempt in the raider's voice as he said the word hetling. She didn't mean offense, it didn't look like it. It didn't look like it. You need to relax. I got her back. I have to say, it looked like you were being beaten quite soundly. You try to remain respectful as you come to Estrid's defense, but there is still a wave of mutters from the crowd. The raider scowls as he looks up and down with the same contempt he showed Estrid. It's been a long and trying day for all of us. Now Estrid's voice carries across the whole deck so that everyone can hear her. Some of you have been fighting since the sun was at its highest. If you really must insist on exhausting yourselves just to pass the time, the least you could do is learn from it, just as you would in any other training session. George's friend immediately and angrily paces over to her, squaring up to her. Estrid stays exactly where she is, if not standing just a little bit taller to hold her ground. We don't know you, hetling, and you are certainly not Swafnilld. You don't have the right to teach us anything. Okay. I mean, I kind of get it. If y'all gonna be fighting day and night, y'all are sparring, like, I would think that it would be some kind of practice, like, learn from it. He not gonna learn nothing, he keep getting his ass beat. She tilts her head to the raider behind her, who is still scowling at you both. She also glances over to you as she continues. Neither of you do. Estrid is a good fighter. You can learn a lot from her. Like, y'all was getting y'all ass beat down there in the storeroom, like, y'all need to learn something. And she's already beaten you once. Another ripple goes through the crowd, and some of them look at you and each other excitedly. You see the raider's jaw clench a little in the torchlight as the two of them size each other up. I went easy on you last time because Gunnar wants to appease your father. Do you think you can beat me a second time? I don't have anything to prove to you. Sounds like cowardice. The opponent butts into the conversation and George's friend grins broadly. Very subtly by her side, Estrid's hand clenches into a fist, though her face stays expressionless. It's smart, not cowardice. I'm being messy. I'm being messy. It's not cowardice. Get him, Estrid. Get him. Whoop whoop. Get him, Estrid. Everyone seems to wait with bated breath for you to finish your point. Estrid is just smart enough not to take a fight she doesn't have to. This time, the crowd doesn't have a chance to add their own commentary to the confrontation. Jersey's friend snaps past Estrid before either of you can react and grabs at you, pulling you forward. Why they pick me? Why they pick me? There's a harsh bump and a flash of pain, and then a crash as you are knocked to the ground. When you open your eyes, she is standing over you with a grin on your face. Why she pick me? Why she... Oh, bitch, what I do to you? Why you pick me? Not smart enough to see that coming, though, it seems. The crowd laughs and jeers as she finally walks away from the conflict. You should go. Perhaps you have something to learn, too. Estrid helps you back up to your feet as the crowd begins to peter around you. There is blood on your nose, but the damage isn't severe. Thank you for that, Outlander. She looks a little embarrassed as she glances around and then points to the stairs. Come on. Let's just go. You walk together deep into the commons where Estrid's hammock waits for her. As you walk, you do continue to check whether your nose is broken, but you think it's alright. You aren't a coward. I see what you mean. I've not seen you like that. I see what you mean about what we were discussing. I should have seen it coming. She shakes her head as she squats down, a rifle through her pack. Thorwallers will never be taught anything new. She is rifling through her bag for a few moments before she stands up again, holding a fine cloth. She holds it out for you, indicating her nose to tell you what it's for. As you wipe the blood from your nose, she scratches at the back of her head while she works out what to say. Thank you for supporting me. I appreciate it a lot. You didn't have to get yourself punched for me, though. It's the least I could do, rather me than you. Is something wrong? You embarrassed because I got my ass put a punch in the face? Like, you know, it happens. I'm not a fighter. I'm a baby mage. I'm not a fighter. You know, I talk shit. That's what I do. I talk shit, but I'm not a fighter. I'm not a fighter. Is something wrong, Estrid, that you'd like to talk about? Estrid immediately looks at the floor again, letting out a heavy sigh. She puts her hand through her hair and scratches at the back of her head again. She ends up shaking it, closing her eyes as if she's very tired. It is just frustrating. These are the people I am meant to be able to lead one day. Sometimes it doesn't feel like I can. You have time to learn. You can't help everyone. Has this happened before? Is this something that has happened before? Estrid laughs and shakes her head vehemently. I got used to my father and brother laughing my advice off, and usually I do a better job of holding my tongue in the midst of strangers. I don't know. I suppose I'm just feeling a bit off at the moment. I think if you don't mind, I would like some time to myself, Outlander. We should sleep anyway. We should try to get some sleep anyway. Just take care, won't you? We have a long way to go before this voyage is through. I don't want the crew killing you before the fiend tries. Estrid laughs as she sets herself into her hammock and lies back. I'll try to keep my head down. Rest well, Outlander. Her look becomes sullen, but she gives you a small smile and nods as you make yourself ready to leave. Oh, so we don't get to talk to the other dudes since we talked to Estrid. Okay. O down here? Plan of attack. Orlver summons you both to meet with his most trusted crew members to discuss how to deal with the fiend of Lolgramoth, setting your sights on finding the demon's tooth. Plan of attack. As night falls, the clouds finally break. You are soaked to the core before you finish your work above the deck, and you're relieved to be able to go below. Your shoes squelch and your clothes stick to you as you pad down the stairs trying to wipe water off your face. It's cold, as well as wet, and you quickly find yourself shivering even with your cloak wrapped tightly around you. You leave a trail of rainwater in your wake as you rush down into the Keenwolf's commons. With no signs of the storm abating quickly, you know yet another rough night lies ahead of you. The harsh winds scream above the deck and the entire ship creaks around you as it threatens to tear itself apart. Underneath it all, you hear too the shuts and cries of those tasked with sailing the ship through the storm. You count yourself lucky that you aren't among them this time. You've barely learned how to manage the rigging of the warmth and dry, let alone in a storm like this. The ship balks against a wave, and you're thrown sideways, catching yourself on the mast. You wait while the whole ship rocks around you and crashes through the violent water. A crewmate laughs at you as he passes, clapping you on the shoulder with a half-mocking, half-friendly smile. Relax, Outlander. It could be much, much worse. You only let your hand fall from the mast when the ship feels steady underfoot once again. Barely a moment passes before you hear Estrid call out behind you. Outlander, come on. Orlver is finally ready to meet with us. She fails to keep her smirk in check as she indicates back towards the stairs. Of course it's now at last. At least it'll be dry. Of course it's now. Y'all wait till I'm about to bust my ass on the ship with this rocket in the waves. Now y'all want me to walk out here. Of course it's right now. At that, Estrid simply laughs. Come on, before we drown. The rain and the wind smacks you in the face hard enough for you to recoil as you dive out from undercover. It isn't far from the stairs to Ulver's quarters, but the wind makes it difficult to walk, pushing you left and right. The two of you stagger and stumble as it roars at you again. Even tied to the mast, the sails are buffered back and forth, struggling to break free of their bindings. This must have come down from the mountains. You reach the door first, rapping hard against it with a fist. The wind blows again, and the hair on the back of your neck stands on end. Somewhere deep in the layers of noise, you hear more howling. It's too distant to be the wind, and doesn't match the rhythm of the tempo of the storm. You look to the north, squinting through the murky blackness for any sign of the shoreline there. Can you hear the howls? How magical is the fiend? How far is the coast? Can you hear the howls? Can you hear the howling of the wind? Is it wolves? They do live in the mountains, but that doesn't sound like wolves. Your clothes get heavier and heavier in the rain, and the wind threatens to push you into the bulkhead. After a few moments, Estrid cries out in frustration and knocks again, slamming the flat of her hand onto the door twice. Only then does the door fly inwards and bouncing back against its hinges as Ulver retreats backwards. He barks at you sharply. Quickly, and close the damn door. You walk into a different world. Oh, he got a nice setup in here. Why we can't stay in here? He got a nice setup. Who is this picture of this lady over here in the corner? Who is that? Straight through the door, the room opens up down a flight of stairs across the entire width of the ship. Against the cold, wet darkness of the world outside, it is warm and bright. Not just that, but the room itself seemed very different from that of your recent experience at Thorwall. There's a banner of royal blue hanging tattered on the back wall with what looks like a fish, with what looks like a fish used as a crest. Oh, I see what they're talking about. There's an old picture of a regal young woman, very stern and resolute, stuffed behind a heavy crate. It looks more like an office than a quarters, though it is cluttered and chaotic. Somehow you find this doesn't surprise you, given your reading of the room's occupant. Do you know no patience? It is clear Ulver's mood is no better than the weather outside. His voice is hoarse and bitter and angry. You called for us. Like, what is with the sass? What is with the attitude? Why are you angry? It's raining out here. You called. Apologies. I'm gonna say apologies. I'm trying to keep the good faith amongst everybody. Apologies. It has been 3 nights and we have not so much as discussed what happened in the Icewell Orville. Time is of the essence. We need to press on. What we do is my decision, whelp. He slumps back into a chair behind an ornate and heavy desk. The chair itself is rich, red cushion and gold painted. It has high arms and a high back, not of Thorwellian design. This is stuff they stole, huh? They stole this? Estrid is staring at Ulver in astonishment, her words caught somewhere in her throat. In the silence, the ship catches on another wave, and the two of you sway as people run and shout outside. Ulver snarls, chaps his fingers on the arm of the chair, and leans forward, agitated. I'm this crew's hetman, and you're here as nothing more than a courtesy. Do not forget that. We only wish to help. No offense, Ulver. We all saw the fiend, friend. We all saw the fiend, friend. We know why we all here. Stop acting like you doing us a favor, because if we all don't work together, it's guaranteed lights out for us. Like, stop it. We're here because of the fiend, Ulver. Because we all saw it. Because Brand, the Goatee, told us that we must all face it. And you chose to believe an old man and his pebbles. You know what? So did you. That's why we're here. So did you. I think that's the first time I've heard Thorwell mock the Runha's hetman. Orville's stony expression doesn't even flicker as the ship shudders again, and yet more shouting rises up outside. You stand in awkward silence for... Why did he call us here? Why did he call us here if he's just gonna sass us? You stand in awkward silence for just a few moments before the door opens again. Gunnar bursts into the room with a shake of his head, sending water droplets flying as he grunts. Swafnil follows him, ducking under the top of the door frame and squeezing water out of her hair. Behind her, another follows, the older man who spoke up when you first arrived on the Keenwolf. You haven't seen much of him since then, but now he grins at you broadly. Gunnar points him out to you. You've met Swafnild already. This is Maednir Gundason. He's a mage, and he knows much about the sagas. As Gunnar makes the introduction, Maednir shows you the back of his right hand, where a tattoo is described. Ooh, I don't have that. He might call me a fraud, because I don't have that. I don't have that. I dropped out of school. I dropped out of baby mage school. You recognize it instantly as the mark of the Runajasko you saw in Oldport, his mage's mark. I thought it might be wise to include both Maednir and Swafnild in this discussion. A mage? Another mage? Another mage? You must have studied at Oldport. Of course, and you? I see no mage's mark. About that. Like, I've been trying to tell these people that I'm a baby mage. Like, I ain't graduate yet. I'm still in school. That's what she should say. I'm still in school, but I'm taking a sabbatical. That's what she should say. She said, I'm not taking a sabbatical. That's what she should say. Before you can think of any response, Gunnar clears his throat loudly to interrupt your discussion. We should get on with this. There's lots to discuss. With the wind and rain to fill the silence, you all gather around the desk to talk. Gunnar goes first, explaining to Swafnild and Maednir what it was like to simply be in the room. When it comes time to describe what happened to those more personally affected, Estrid steps in. She describes it exactly as you still remember it, like a hook tearing through the inside of your chest, opening a hole that just could not be closed, leaving you with the feeling of being watched, being hunted. The ash and the blood. And on the fourth crashing roll of thunder, that howling, guttural roar. There was a face. She was gonna say this the last time we were talking to Brand, and then I didn't choose that. Harrowing, monstrous, there was a face. There was a face as well, that of some monster I couldn't place. I can't imagine it wasn't in my mind, but it seemed so real. Yes, this is how it often begins in the stories, hallucinations that make you question what is real. Your story matches parts of all the ones I know of the Fiend. The Goatee was right. It is back once again to haunt us. But it was beaten once, which means it can be beaten again. It was held back with the help of Dyer of Travia. No. He a naysayer. Orlver taps his fingers against the arm of his chair as he gives Maednir one of the darkest looks you've yet seen. Maednir reacts as though this is exactly the reaction he expected, indicating Orlver with a grimace. Which isn't an option. Your hope lies instead with the demon's tooth. Is that the weapon? And that is a weapon of some kind. According to some stories, there are many stories about the Fiend and those that hunted it. Some are different from others. We may have to take many parts from each in order to find the truth. Say that we find the demon's tooth, what then? Where do you begin to hunt for a creature like this? It is said to come from the high north. There is only mountains and tundra. There is no tundra to be found near Alicefell, so I would start in the mountains, the high, cold places. We could take the whole crew, hunt this thing like we would hunt any animal. Swafnild's enthusiasm is cut short by a frustrated and almost bored sigh emanating from the chair again. He ain't in the best shape. I think he doesn't want to do this because he knows he's not up to par, for this battle. Turning to Orlver again, you see that he now just looks fed up. You are all missing the obvious answer. It has been 3 nights since Alicefell, and we have heard neither sight nor sound of this fiend since we have been on the open water. It cannot hunt us here. Oh, Jesus. He's just making up shit now. Now you're just making up shit. You scared, now you're making up shit. That's what this is. It's still out there, so we're trapped. Well, we don't know that. You making that up. We don't know that. You making it up. With a creature like this, I don't think we know that for sure. It is obviously magical and quite powerful. She's right, Orlver. Just because it has an attack sense doesn't mean it can't. And why should we not strike first, Orlver? Think of the opportunity that is for all of us. Alright, enough, all of you. Gunnar's loud shout cuts through the rising voices and tensions, bringing everyone to quiet again. Whether we strike first or not, we have other problems to solve. I had our newcomers sort our plunder and supplies. If we do nothing, we will starve in a little over 2 weeks. He is as tired and annoyed as he has seemed all throughout your journey so far, but he's also confident in his commands and certainly has everyone's attention. Swafnhild, on our return from Halfsnar, we will have to raid in Nostria. We're not. I thought we were trading. I thought we were trading stuff. We're raiding. I'm a baby mage. I don't raid. I don't do that. I have morals. I don't steal. I don't do that. I'm a baby mage. Make sure everyone is prepared. We will have to be quick and precise. Swafnhild nods, accepting her orders without complaint or argument. Are we finna really raid? Gunnar immediately turns to Maidner. You a mage? You be raiding too? When we have the Demon's Tooth, I want you to make sure you know what it is, how it works. Until then, take some time, if you can, to bring the Outlander up to speed on what you know. What should we do? Gunnar's expression is difficult to read when he turns to the two of you. He thinks for a long moment before he shrugs. Continue to help where you can, and be ready to strike when we do. Estrid is visibly embittered by the response, glaring at Gunnar, and then Orlver, and then you. And then silence falls on the group again. Outside, the rain still batters the windows to the echoes of howling wind. Inside, everyone seems to be waiting for someone else to speak. And eventually, Orlver gives a heavy shrug, tapping his fingers again. I don't know what else we need to discuss. Maitner, Swafnir, and Gunnar all seem to take this as a hint to leave. They pick themselves out of the small circle you formed around Orville's desk and head for the door. That leaves you and Estrid standing before the Moros hetman again. All you think about is the fact that, in the grand scheme of things, not much progress has really been made. Exactly. I can't stand when you gotta take a work meeting and it's about nothing. It's a complete waste of time. And looking at Estrid, you get a sneaking suspicion that she feels the same way, but Orlver quickly makes it clear that he doesn't care. You should leave. Estrid seems to weigh up the advantages and disadvantages of answering back. Then her lips twist into an aggravated smile and she nods, leading for the door. Orlver immediately turns to you, clearly expecting you to leave behind her. We're only trying to help, say nothing. Take this more seriously, bro. Take this more seriously, bro. I don't want to die. I'm not even supposed to be here, bro. Take this more seriously. You should take this more seriously, Orlver, before it gets worse, bro. God. I don't want to be on this boat. You don't want us on this boat? I don't want to be on this boat. We're going to do what we got to do so I'm not having to be on this boat any longer than I need to be. You turn on your heels without waiting on a response and follow your companion back out into the storm. I did that. I'm, low-key wanting to avoid this mage. Because, I'm low-key wanting to avoid this mage because I don't want him to peep that I don't have my mage mark. I don't want him to know that about me. And I don't know why we wouldn't even talk to her. Swafnhild? I don't know why we wouldn't even talk to her. Let me talk to this. The Fiend's Tale. You get a chance to meet with Maitner, the Keenwolf's resident mage, who can tell you more about the history of the Demon's Tooth, okay? And gifts and afflictions. In preparation for what may be ahead, you join one of the raiders' training exercises on Keenwolf's decks. I'm not trying to do no training exercise. Let me talk to this here. The Fiend's Tale. The distant sun beats down weakly on your head as you pace across the deck. You have finally found some free time between tasks. You've not been aboard the Keenwolf long, and you can already appreciate the deck as a place of relaxation. As long as it is not too busy, there is plenty of open space, and the air is always fresh. It makes a big change to the stale and grimy innards of the Keenwolf. You are already a little sick of being able to do nothing but wait. After Orlver's late night meeting to discuss hunting the Fiend, it feels like you have made no progress. Halsinger is still some way off, and it feels though until you get there, the quest has come to a halt. It is making you more than a little anxious. As such, you are pacing across the Keenwolf's deck, deep in thought, when there is a noise from near the prow. Ugh, I read that so wrong. There is a door there, set between two small sets of stairs that lead to an upper deck of sorts at the front of the ship. It is unassuming enough, itself set a little lower in the floor to make room for a cabin. It is a door that opens just as you have walked past it, so you have to turn to look back at who is there. Maitner, his name was, the old man that was there when you came aboard and you met again at the meeting. He looks you up and down, tightening his grip on his staff as he pushes himself up the single step onto deck. Greetings, Outlander. You seem troubled. He gives you a big, broad smile as he nods his head respectfully. You would too. You probably would too under the circumstances. You don't mean for your response to seem quite so snappy as it is. He doesn't seem offended, though, rather laughing and nodding vehemently. Probably. Please come in. I've been wanting to talk to you. With that, he disappears back inside again, this time leaving the door to his cabin open. You hesitate for a few moments before following after him, unsure about what to expect. This cabin is far cozier than any other part of the ship. There's a different kind of clutter to this place than to Ulver's cabin at the opposite end of the ship. This is not negligence or apathy. This is busyness, like someone is always trying to be in two places at once. But the strangest thing is, the bookshelf that has had every available measure applied to it to keep it upright. Oh, I see. There's like wood and rope. He need a new bookshelf. To keep its contents from falling out. And from the books piled on the floor and crate next to it, more work clearly remains to be done. As you take the room in, Maitner indicates for you to take a seat wherever you like. He himself heaves the chair at the desk around and sits down in that, looking at you enthusiastically. Gunnar said that I should bring you up to speed on what I know about the Fiend. If you have time now, so do I. What do you know? What do you know about the Fiend, if I may ask? I know the stories passed down through the generations, and I think they might be of use to you might be used to help you better understand what it is you are facing. Maitner twists himself around to reach for the book that is on his desk and holds it up to you. I don't know whether you know this. It is not really the Thorwellian way to write stories down for later generations to read, but when you came aboard and Gunnar told us what had happened, I thought it best to start collating notes. Let's start with what you do know, a good foundation for all. Starting slowly, you take a little while to go through what Brand told you about the Fiend in Alsusfell. Even though he has heard it before, Maitner also asks you to recite your personal experience with the Fiend. You don't go into every minute detail of the event, but you give him enough to build an impression. All the while he writes and writes, scribbling and scratching at the page with a quill. He quickly fills the page with notes, but never once asks you to repeat anything or slow down. When you are done, he nods understandingly and quickly sets his quill back in his inkwell. It sounds as though the Goatee, Brand, tried to give you the information you need. Perhaps time was short, or he was just excited? Whatever it was, he told you the story as if you were a Thorwaller, expecting you to know the missing pieces. Those are the details I am able to help you with. I could've came up with that. Where would you like to start? What is the Fiend? Who were the cultists? That's a good question. Who are the cultists who created the Fiend? And why would they do such a thing? Maitner wrings his hands and nods. You may know the term Blessed One. We call them Dyers. Those who are blessed by the gods to do their will on this plane of existence. There comes a time in the life of all Dyers where they must be tested by their gods. This Dyer, blessed by Travia, was corrupted by the Restless One on the command of Harangar. Harangar, so it believed by us, is the root of all evil in this world. She commands all other evil things, including the Restless One. And because of this corruption, the Restless One wrought on the Dyer. He failed Travia's test. It is only now that Maitner stops for a breath for the first time. It is certainly incredibly clear that Maitner is very knowledgeable about the topic. Such failings are not uncommon, but that he was able to spread the corruption to others. I can only imagine how troubling that would have been at the time. But that is all the cult was, a group bound by this corruption to serve the Restless One. He leans back in his chair and sighs loudly. As for what they would release the Fiend upon this world, I can only guess. Perhaps their Dark Master bade them to. Perhaps they just wanted to cause havoc. At that, he falls silent again. What is the Fiend? Who is the Restless One? I thought the Restless One was the Fiend. What is the Fiend? What more can you tell me about what the Fiend is? Maynard nods and repositions himself slightly. Not very much that you do not know yourself. Creating a demonid is the only way a demon can stay on our plane of existence, indefinitely. The cultists who did so must have known what they were creating, but I find it Fascinating, almost, that they chose a saber-toothed cat to fuse the demon with. I can only imagine its form must be truly horrific. Oh shit, are we gonna see it? We gonna see it? It's scary. Maitner thinks for a moment before continuing. It will prove to be a powerful magical creature. Maybe you know, Outlander, that magic has a certain reputation in Thorwall. It is studied incredibly carefully and incredibly slowly. Many in our guilds do not wish it to be used at all unless it can be properly understood. They fail to see the contradiction in that. But anyway, this is the point. We do not understand our own magic well enough for us to understand magic of a different plane. Got you. This fiend may be capable of a great many things we have no defense against. It is difficult to say what exactly it might do to you if you cannot stop it. But there is a pattern to the stories of the fiend. It is said to have driven its victims mad with vision and dreams. It terrified them, and it always left behind a feeling of terrible uneasiness. Silence falls across the study, and you swallow nervously. That sounds incredibly dangerous. Indeed. Who is the Restless One? And what more can you tell me about the Restless One? Of course, you're not likely to know of her, I suppose. Oh, this is... Okay, I get it. She's like the head honcho. At least not in the same context we do. Maitner takes a moment before he begins, waxing lyrical on this subject. She is the great enemy of Travia. The greatest, in fact. She is every bit Travia's opposite, as terrible as Travia is wonderful. Travia cares for hospitality and loyalty, but also compassion and peace, both towards others and yourself. He stops for a moment and thinks again, leaning forward and pursing his lips. Perhaps then we can guess at what aspects of Restless One the Fiend uses against its victims. Restless One the Fiend uses against its victim. Restlessness? Yeah, restlessness. The clue is in its name. But what does that mean, Outlander? There are many ways to be restless. Or perhaps there is another aspect. Will it make us disloyal to each other? What about it is so terrifying to those it hunts? There are still many questions left to answer. He has a tone and expression of curious excitement as he leans back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Bro, why are you excited about this? Like, this is terrifying. You think for a moment before an idea comes to you. But the Fiend has been defeated before. What about this weapon? What about this hero? What about this hero? Can you tell me about anything about this hero that hunted the Fiend the last time it was free? Maitner squints as he thinks, and he picks up the book, flicking a few pages backwards. You hear him muttering to himself. I was never very good at names. He jams a finger into the page and scans down quickly before gasping. Aha! Oda Walker's daughter. She led a small group of adventurers on the quest to defeat the Fiend. Some stories seem to suggest that she only found the Dyer of Travia to bless the Demon's Tooth after she had claimed the prize. What? Others suggest the Dyer traveled with her, along with her companions. Maitner stops and shakes his head, scratching his temple as he looks at you. It isn't unusual for our stories to be so conflicting. Those telling them go to great length to save all the detail they can. It is our history, after all. But I suppose after a while it is bound to happen when the story is so old. Not everyone can remember everything forever, so... Yes, the 3 or 4 of them traveled together to face down the Fiend and trapped it. They locked it away somewhere in a deep sleep, wounding it greatly, I would imagine, but not killing it. Then, they forged the Demon's Tooth, in case the Fiend ever got free of its bindings. What about this weapon? Well, what about this Demon's Tooth, then? Brand said that no normal weapon would be usable. True. The demon that resides within the Fiend of the Restless One is not of this plane. That means that our weapons will have... See, sometimes I feel like they're using that interchangeably, and it confuses me. That means that our weapons will have very limited effect against it. But the Demon's Tooth is blessed by Travia, and therefore holds power over it. Maitner takes up the book again, flickering through some of the pages. Our problem is, I do not know for certain that the Demon's Tooth is actually a weapon. Oh? Again... He screws his face up as he shakes his head, giving the book in his hand an annoyed expression. This is why I wish more things were written down, Outlander. We wouldn't have this conflict if people stored the story in more than just spoken word. Well, at least that is true, as long as everyone remains honest. Anyway, some stories I remember describing the tooth as a weapon, yes, but others just say it is blessed to be used against the fiend. Perhaps it is a ward or simply a way of finding the creature. I don't know. You're both silent for a long while after that. He's making really good points about this, though. Like, we don't know how this artifact, this thing, is going to actually work. And it's probably not a weapon in the sense that we would think of a weapon. You need a break. There's a lot of information to process. Things are certainly clearer, but you do not know whether that is helpful or damning. They should have used it. Why the inconsistency? My head hurts. They should have used it. They did use it, right? The demon's tooth? Or they forged the demon's tooth after. I see what she's saying. Yeah, they should have used it. They should have used it. It is spoken as much to yourself as it is to Maidner. More the end of a thought than the beginning of a conversation. I'm sorry? Maidner seems dreary too as he puts the book back on the desk. They should have used the demon's tooth to stop the fiend then. We would have been spared this. I think there are a great many cases where the slightest decision may change the course of history. Sadly, that is not something we can control. Perhaps they couldn't, and that is why they didn't. We may never know. The most worrying of everything is that finding the tooth might be for nothing. Ugh, that sucks. You go on this whole, to find this thing, and it might just be a piece of garbage. You think back to the meeting wherein Maidner suggested finding a blessed one to help. Only for Olver to shut the idea down snappily. You are still deep in thought when Maidner speaks again out of the blue. You know, when I was still part of the Runjasko, I had a great number of arguments about history. Most of them pertain to magic, of course, but there were some of wider discussion as well. My colleagues, they always argues that things are the way they are because they have proven to work. I can't help but think that if that were true, problems like this one wouldn't exist. He right. Is that why you left? How did you end up here? Things that don't work. How did you end up here? How did you end up here above the Keenwolf, if I may ask? Maidner shrugs. There is not much to it, I'm afraid. Gunnar and Olver asked me. Many winters pass now, and it seems like something new and interesting. And since I have just been able to do what I enjoy without much interruption. Maidner pushes himself to his feet with the book from his desk in his hand, shuffling over to the bookcase. Very gently, he sets the volume behind one of the material restraints that have been nailed to stop the books falling out. Are all of these books yours? Some are Nostrian. They are already on the ship when it was taken. See, they really raiding. They stealing these criminals. And we just rolling with them. Otherwise, yes. I came to make a habit of writing down the stories I know, just in case it may help in the future. So far it hasn't, but it has been for fun nonetheless. Maidner's voice is tinged with sadness as he looks at some of the spines of the books in his collection. But, a moment later, he turns back to you and smiles broadly. Anyway, Outlander, we have been at this for some time, and I think you now know everything you can. Perhaps it is best to leave our discussion here to give us both some time to think. You nod, standing from your own seat and stretching as you feel the tiredness setting in. The time went quickly. Thank you for your help. There's a lot to think about. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your help in understanding all of this. It's my pleasure. Even if the subject matter is rather grim, the past is always fascinating to me. Maidner walks you all the way to the stairs of his cabin, giving his final thoughts as he goes. Try not to worry too much about the number of questions we still have, Outlander. Even once we've reached Halsinger, there will still be some way to go before this journey is over. There's plenty of time for the answers we need to reveal themselves as long as we look in the right places. Things may look bleak, but until it's actually over, there can always be hope. Okay. Is that the demon tooth? Is that it? Is that what it looked like? Alright, I'm at about an hour and 4 minutes, so I'm gonna cut it here. This is a lot to like take on. Got some information, but the information is still very vague, so I just don't see that. I'm not gonna say it's not gonna help, but it's so vague. What am I gonna do with this information? It's a cat beast demon thing. We gotta find a demon tooth, and we don't even know if the demon tooth is really gonna do anything. And it seems like they made it from they made it from the cat demon, right? They made it after they put it away, but they didn't really explain how they put this demon thing away. I don't know. I also have a lot to think about with this story. We're in Act 2. We are on the Keenwolf. We are on a mission to save ourselves from giant saber-toothed cat demon that's hunting us for some reason. It ain't got nothing to do with me. But we're just gonna jump back into it. We're not gonna waste too much time. Dead Woman's Tale. Arriving at Haljingsor. You go ashore to ask the Hetman for more information about the Demon's Tooth. Okay, so I'm guessing this chapter this level, this is in the chapter, wherever we are right now, we're going on shore to do some investigatory work. So I guess I'm gonna have to ask the right questions to get the right answers. Chair's stuck. Alright, start. Oh, Dead Woman's Tale. It is the chapter. As the Keenwolf pads softly through the sea foam towards the shore, you glance over the settlement of Haljingsor. Right, what kind of peoples these is? It's smaller than Alsfell, and as far as you can tell, but it's hard to say by how much. It sits on a corner of an outcrop where the ocean cuts into the fjord that reaches for the roots of the mountains. There are a few Adas and Skutas sailing here and there, but only a couple are headed to and from Haljingsor itself. Hold here, roll up the sails and drop the anchor stone before the Westwind pushes us to the shore. Start preparing a Skuta and somebody call Maidnir. The ship becomes a flurry of activity as Gunnar barks his orders from the quarterdeck. There's a heavy splash, and the anchor stone is thrown overboard, dragging the Keenwolf to a halt in the water. Next to you, a very tense Estrid rubs her neck as she watches Gunnar continue to bark orders. She seems despondent as she looks back towards Haljingsor, rechecking that her vam braces are tight. I'm glad this week is behind us, Outlander. Because of the crew, I hope it's worth it. There's still a ways to go. No, because we got cursed. Like, I'm not gonna... Like, the crew is the crew. She expected that, I'm pretty sure, though. Hope it's worth it. There's still a ways to go. I'm looking forward. There's still a long way to go, even once we've retrieved the Demon's Tooth. Doing this is still better than doing nothing. This is true. It's a hard lesson to learn for some people. You know, some people kind of get stagnant. You know, they get bad news and then they shut down. I've done it plenty of times. At least they are forging ahead. I felt trapped on this ship. It feels like it was a lot longer than a week. Yeah, a week isn't that long, but on a boat with a bunch of people that don't really care for you, that's probably hard. Estrid takes a careful look around at the crew before she leans in a little closer to speak quietly. Particularly because of Olver seems so determined to do nothing. You two! Your conversation is interrupted by Gunnar's appearance behind you. You will have to answer a lot of Hetman Jorgensen's questions, and you may not like them all. Are you ready? Oliver should be coming. What should we expect? What if he says no? What should we expect from such a meeting with a Het person? You were a guest of Hetman Ferrojason, weren't you? Most are the same. Just show him respect and he will show you the same. Okay. How much of your story he will believe without seeing it for himself, I can't say. But he'll know the stories of the Fiend as well as any Thorwaller. That should help you. Don't worry, Maidnir. Maidnir and I will help you where we can. A call comes from those crew preparing the Skuta, and you see Maidnir scurrying towards it from below deck. Come on, let's not waste more time than we have to. You glance over to Estrid before either of the two of you move. It looks as though she thinks about saying something, but then she shrugs and makes her way over to the boat. She be having her inner thought. Estrid be having her inner thought. She be thinking, like, and I can tell sometimes she don't be feeling it. And sometimes I wish she would just speak up. You follow with the familiar bundle of nerves starting to build in the bottom of your chest. Please, you find yourself thinking, let this be worth it. The waters are choppier than they look from the safety of the Keenwolf. For an hour or more, you and Estrid row with the two other crewmates Gunnar and Maidnir have brought along. Despite the biting chill of the air, you quickly find yourself hot and sweating. All four of you put your backs into getting to Haljingsor as quickly as possible. It even distracts you from any worries and concerns you have about your quest. You're struck by a strange sensation when you step on the beach. This looked just like where we came from, to be honest. Solid ground feels slightly strange after more than a week at sea. Oh, I bet that's weird. Oh, I didn't think about that. I bet that's weird. Oh, look at little birdies flying in the back. You can see some birds flying in the back. That's cool. Okay, you need a few moments to get your bearing to adjust to a world that is not constantly moving. That puts you behind Maitnir, Gunnar, and Estrid, who step onto the pebbles much more confidently. The others start unloading from the boat the plunder Gunnar wishes to trade while you're in the village. Gunnar talks to them first, seemingly in a rush to get things done. Find a market if you can. Look for food first, but coin will do nicely as well. You two, come with us. We need to find the Hetman's Hall. The beach is significantly less busy than the one you left in Alisfell. There are a dozen people about, dragging crates and chests up and down the beach. There are 3 full-size Otta longships beached on the pebbles, 2 fishing boats, a few skutas like the one you arrived in. And there's a palisade with the gate standing open to welcome anyone from the ocean into the village. As in I'm reading so fast, I can't say these words. As in Alisfell, there are no guards anywhere to be seen, but you do see 2 watchtowers standing tall over the village. Watchtowers? It's very quiet. Watchtowers make sense. I feel like, yeah, they would have to have some kind of security, and if they don't have guards, watchtowers make sense. It's very quiet, isn't it? This part of the region is. Overthorn to the north is busier. You probably stopped there on your way to and from Oldport, but there is very little reason to stay here unless you live here, and few people do. Gunnar leads your small group through the palisade gate and into the village proper. The reaction to your arrival varies from none to pleasant to slightly cautious. As in Alisfell, your path is uphill and you move further and further away from the beach. Little by little, the telltale markers become more and more familiar. The long houses, the make and model of the buildings, and the winding of the packed dirt streets. Gunnar brings you straight to the Hetman's Hall, where you see the first major difference between settlements. A well-armed and well-armored woman standing outside the door to the hall, looking rather bored. When she sees you approaching her, though, her eyes become sharp and she stands up straight. Gunnar gives her a courteous nod as he stops your party before her. In the name of Great Whale, we greet you. Well met. I am Hetsrika of Hetman Jorgensen's Thinkscurry. Do you wish to speak with him? Hetsrika. Yes, about the matter of great importance. We are seeking the Demon's Tooth. Oh, I see. A first. No one has asked to speak with the Hetman about that before. Wait here, and I will relay your message. Who are you? Gunnar Ranulfsson, and, Gunnar looks around at all of you again, settling his eyes on you for a moment, before turning back to her. Other members of my Otchisko. The guard, Hetsrika, nods and turns towards the door, disappearing through it quickly. The 4 of you can then form a small circle to talk quietly without much interruption. What is a Hetsrika? What about our names? Is everything alright? Is everything alright? We good? We safe? Is everything alright, Gunnar? You hesitated there. I hope so, Outlander. I want to be careful in giving out our names and our Jusko until Hetman Jorgensen has agreed to see us. Orlver's reputation is not what it once was, and I do not want to arouse suspicion. Oh, I see. Perhaps we should have given my name and the Outlanders. That way it could have been avoided completely. Perhaps, but then it might also have looked suspicious that the rest of us never introduced ourselves. After some time, the door reopens and the Hetsrika reappears, closing the door quickly behind her. She looks at you all with a deep frown. I'm sorry. You're welcome to trade in the markets if you have anything to trade, but Hetman Jorgensen will not see you. He cannot help you. He cannot help us? He won't even see us. Why? That is all he told me. The Hetsrika stands firm, sweeping over all of you again with an apologetic look. We have to insist. I am Estrid. My father is Ulfgar Fjorgensen, Hetman of Alisfell. If we could just have a moment. Estrid tries to step past the Hetsrika towards the door. The guard is very quick to put a hand on her shoulder, blocking her way. Her other hand tightens slightly around her sword hilt. I'm sorry, you cannot enter. Let's she's serious. She's doing her job. She's serious. Let's chill, Estrid. She doesn't move another muscle until Estrid steps back again. Then she just stares at you until Gunnar nods and turns to lead you away from the door. Gunnar won't hear any complaints or arguments until you're safely out of earshot of the Hetman's Hall. Across the way, he draws you all into a circle to talk quietly amongst yourselves. Is this normal? That seems normal. He don't know y'all. Y'all didn't give your names. Y'all just some people at his door asking about a demon tooth. And he like, I don't know nothing about no demon tooth. I don't answer my door when people come. I look through the camera and be like, I don't know them, and continue watching TV. What am I gonna do? What can I offer them and I don't know them? What now? What does this mean? It mean he don't want to see y'all. What now? What are we supposed to do now? I am not sure. I am open to suggestions if you have any. Gunnar working with us? Things must be grave if he is not willing to see us. There are very few reasons for a het person to refuse an audience completely. Oh, okay. Now I see why it's strange. The het person, like, will always see you, so him turning a blind eye to them is kind of strange. Okay, I get it. Disagreements, grudges. Ios's fellow has no grudge with Halsingor. We have no relationship at all, to my knowledge. Okay. Do you think Hetman Jorgensen knows who you are, Gunnar? That you sail with Orlver? I cannot say for sure, but I doubt it. No, I believe he is hiding something. His guard said he cannot help us, not that he will not help us. It isn't personal. And we've not been told to leave the village, simply stopped in our tracks. To stop us stumbling upon something here that they don't want us to find. They have the demon's tooth here. He thinking. Perhaps they lost it. They'd be proud of that. Then why turn us away? Perhaps they lost it. You never know. They're embarrassed about it. They don't want to really talk about it. They know it's supposed to be there, but they can't say that it's not there. Do you think perhaps they lost the tooth? They're so ashamed of it, they want us not to know? I don't think so, Outlander. Any Thorwaller who lost such a treasure would likely admit it. They would be ashamed, yes, but that is better than cowardice of keeping such a thing a secret. Whatever the reason, we must decide what happens now. Gunnar turns his attention back to the Hetman's Hall and the Hetsreka positioned by its door. She watches you a little cautiously, her hand still on the pommel of her sword. Gunnar turns back to you with a certain sense of urgency. And we should decide quickly before we invite too much unwanted attention. Estrid is becoming more irate with every moment, leaning into the circle to hiss angrily. What do you mean? What happens now? We don't have another choice. We don't have another choice. Bran told us the demonid cannot be killed with these weapons here. Without the tooth, we have nothing. We need a dyer. We don't know that. We steal it. That's right. We need a dyer. We need help from someone who better understands the power of the creature. You said that the dyer of Travia would be able to help us, didn't you, Maidenir? And Orlver said, no, Outlander. What? Why? Believe me when I say that angering him is not a road you want to go down. Damn him. I'm not trying to die by no saber-toothed cat demon. No, that is the fiend. That is how the fiend was stopped before. But we must find another way. You see Maidenir come to a conclusion in his mind as he nods to himself slowly, and then looks around at all of you. Our best choice is the tool that all these words, Walkersdottir and her companions gave us. If Hetman Jorgensen will not give it to us, then we must take it for ourselves. Every single one of you, including the other crew brought with you, stares at Maidenir in shock. What? Are you mad? You don't have another choice, Hetling. If you do not have the demon's tooth, the fiend will slowly drive you mad. Do you want that? Maidenir, this is not like raiding in the south. You are suggesting we commit a punishable crime for this, against a hetman, no less. Maidenir is right. You may not have the time for us to concoct a different plan or to find another option. If you wish to fight the fiend on equal footing, this is the best chance you have. We're gonna bring it back. We're gonna borrow it. We're gonna bring it back. We're gonna take it for a little bit. We're gonna leave a note. Say, look, we're gonna try and have it back by the end of the month. Just hold tight till we bring it back. And what if we are caught? Do you wish to be dragged out in front of the Jarl? At least then we will have an opportunity to explain what is going on. And if the Hetman Jorgensen won't help us, the Jarl surely must. Look, that stone building there. Maidenir points a careful finger at a structure just up the street from the Hetman's Hall. Don't be pointing in front of these people. They don't need to know what we're talking about. The rest of you all try to take a look at it without making it obvious to the Hetsreka that you are scheming. If I wanted to protect all of the Otchisko's treasures, that is probably where I would put them. Close to the head person's hall, but not as easy to damage as the other wooden buildings around us. Also unremarkable as to avoid the eye of would-be thieves. If the demon's tooth is anywhere out of sight, it is probably there. But if we're going to steal it, we need to do it without the Hetzrecker still staring at us. So now is the time to decide. It's this, or we leave empty-handed. I say yes, if there is no other way. If there really is no other way, then I suppose we must. All eyes now fall on Estrid, who is clearly still struggling with the idea. She rubs her face and then balls her fists and rolls her eyes. Fine, I don't like it, but fine. Gunnar quickly nods decisively. I will collect the others and make sure we're ready to leave quickly. You three find the tooth and make sure you hurry. With one last glance at the Hetzrecker, Gunnar scurries away back down the path you came. And now I'm thinking, if they showed up and started talking about the demon's tooth, right? And he knows the story of Saber-Tooth Cat Demon. Like, maybe he didn't want to see them because he thought that, like, some of the evil juju was going to rub off on him. That could be another thing. He's like, oh, I can't help them. They got problems. I don't need any more problems. That could be it, too. It may just be that he's just scared. Because anybody seeking that is probably marked. Maitner quickly looks to you and Estrid, studying you both carefully. I could distract the Hetman's guard. Perhaps some stories about the war in which those watchtowers were built would interest her? I'm sure that would give you plenty of time to get in and out of that vault. If anyone must be the distraction, then let it be me. Perhaps she can be convinced to speak to the Hetman again on our behalf. And I want as little to do with this as I possibly can. Maitner distracts her, Estrid distracts her. Let's have Estrid distract her. Estrid, you cause the distraction. If we have her, if we get caught or something, I know Estrid can hold her own in a fight. I also don't want Estrid wrapped up in the idea that she was stealing. Because, maybe... But if she's causing the distraction and they decide that she had something to do with it, like she's the face of the crime, though. Right? I don't know if I made the best choice there, but the deed is done. Estrid, you cause the distraction. But at first sign of trouble, you run back to us, alright? Understood, Outlander. Don't move too quickly. Wait until we are in deep conversation. Before either of you can say a word, she is pacing quickly back towards the Hetzrecker. She stands between you and the Guardian, drawing her attention with a bow of her head and quiet words. From where you are, you can see the Hetzrecker at least tries to be courteous in return. But as the conversation continues, it becomes more and more heated as Estrid insists to see the Hetman. Damn it, Estrid. Don't prove me wrong. That is when Maitner decides it is time to go, talking to you in a whisper as he makes his way towards the vault. Come, Outlander, let's not waste time. You try not to make it too obvious that you are rushing towards the vault. Maitner was right in that it is unassuming. If he hadn't pointed it out, you wouldn't have laid eyes on it. At a quick pace, it doesn't take you long to reach the door. You try it as Maitner hobbles up behind you, only to find the door locked shut. Can you cast a spell? No, I'm finna do that shit. I'm a mage. I got this. With no time to spare, you quickly glance back towards the Hetzrecker before you begin to cast Orcanophaxis. I read that. Breaking and entering isn't exactly what you had in mind when you were taught the spell, but it is effective. There is a loud crash, and the blast of air from your fingers knocked the door off its very rusty hinges. You know the noise will probably ruin the distraction made for you, but you still have time to find the tooth. Maitner, do you not know the meaning of subtly, Outlander? Quickly, inside. He hurries into the murky shadows of darkness without a second thought, leaving you to follow behind him. Your eyes need a moment to readjust to the new level of light as you step into the room. Once they fall upon a small treasure hoard. Dozens of objects push up against the walls. Weapons, armor, and shields, none of Thorwallian make or design. Small prizes and trinkets, some small chests that are locked closed. It is all from two angles. It's all lit from two angles. Daylight floods into the vault from the doorway behind you, casting your shadow on the floor, but it also bleeds in from the back of the room. That wall is not made of stone like the others, but upright wooden beams, and one of them is missing. It casts a single ray of light onto an empty podium near the back of the room. What is all of this? Why would the tooth be here? What is all of this? Treasures taken from raids. The Helsingers Otchisko has taken part over the years. After a raid, anything of real value is traded away or kept by whoever claims it, and what's left comes to vaults like these. It's a point of pride for the Otchisko, for the people, proof of their honor and glory. You search while you talk, looking around the room for anything resembling a saber tooth. There aren't piles of treasures to sort through. You can see everything there is to be seen. In a matter of moments, you have both reached the same conclusion. It's not here. I don't understand. Why is it not here? You don't reply. Your eyes are drawn to the empty podium upon which the beam of light from the back wall breaks. Why would it be empty? You step up to it carefully, trying not to disturb anything else in the room as you go. In the light, you see a dark patch in the center of the podium, like something has been removed from atop it. Somebody broke in through the back and stole it. Around it, the stone of the podium is much lighter, where dust lies heavy on it after many, many a long year. Investigate the podium. Someone else was here. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking somebody came in from the back. You barely finish your sentence when the cold, sharp bite of steel presses gently at your throat. Ooh. You freeze, but your eyes flick. She look like an elf. You an elf? You elf people? Hey. You freeze, but your eyes flick towards the elf who now stands with the dagger to your throat where she didn't before. She gives you a grave look as she sees you look her up and down, pursuing her lips tightly. Please don't move. It is an elf. Look, it's an elf. It's an elf. It's an elf. There's elves in this. This is so fun. No one else was supposed to be here. Maitner responds quickly, bringing his staff into both hands as he turns around to face the new voice. At the smallest show of force, the elf backs away from you towards the corner, holding her dagger hand up. Her other hand clutches a small leather-bound book, a journal or diary of some kind, if you were to guess. Please, all I ask is that you give me enough time to leave and that you don't try to follow me. I don't want to cause any more trouble. I just want to go. Ooh. Who are you? What do you do? I want to ask all of these questions. Said she had a small book. What have you got there? What have you got there in your hand? She glances down at the book in her hand and then back up you again. You glance at the empty podium and you have to assume you've come across a thief. Please, just let me go. I won't tell the Otchisko or the Think Sorry you were here if you don't tell them about me. Your conversation is interrupted as Estrid sprints into the room, clattering past the door loudly. We have to get back to the ship. I tried to stop the Hetzreka for as long as I could, but she is reporting our actions to the Hetman. They'll close the gate on us if we do not go now. We haven't found the tooth. What? As they argue amongst themselves, you continue to watch the elf closely. At the mention of the tooth, she glances down at the book in her hands again, and at the sound of a bell ringing outside, she gives all three of you an alarmed look. We have to leave now. Before Estrid can move past her towards the gap in the wall, the elf dances back and brandishes her dagger again. Wait, I can help you. I can help you find the demon's tooth. Yes! I want an elf in our party. I want an elf in our party. We're getting an elf in our party. I'm so excited. But only if you let me come with you. If you swear to take me on your ship, I will help you out of the village without being seen. And then I can help you find the demon's tooth. But I want your word that I can come with you first. The bell rings louder and faster now. It is certainly an alarm, or you've never heard one. You turn back to the elf who knows full well she is the only thing standing between all of you and freedom. Fine. We don't have time for this. Fine. For a painstaking moment, she gives you a very measured look, and then she nods and turns for the gap in the wall. Follow me. One by one, you each squeeze through the gap and in the wall and back into full daylight. Maitner has some trouble with this, and Estrid is slowed down as she has to aid him through. The moment he is safely through the gap, the stranger beckons you to follow her away. She doesn't take you towards the gate directly, but instead towards the nearest palisade northwards. As the bell chimes and loud shouts ring out across the village, she expertly takes you from building to building. After a few buildings, she stops you, listening out for a few moments before she nods. Stay close and stay quiet. With that, she lifts her palms and begins to whisper under her breath. It takes you a moment to recognize that you don't understand what she's saying. Worried about being discovered in your hiding spot, you look around for any sign of the Hetzreka or any warriors. But then you pause as your ears ring at the nature of the stranger's whispering. It's though there are two voices speaking at once. The same words are in different tones and pitches together. It creates a perfectly balanced harmony around her voice that is unlike anything you've heard before. And you wonder as smoke begins to rise out of her palms. What? As if from nowhere, billowing out over her fingers. She got magic. No, not smoke, fog, spreading out around you quickly as she now gently blows it into the air. So she created cover so they can get out. Oh, this is cool. It's cool to have an elf friend. Within a flash, it has enveloped you completely, and you can barely see beyond your own nose. That's something. Elvish magic. Once more, the elf looks around more cautiously this time as somewhere nearby someone this sentence, oh my god. Once more, the elf looks around, more cautiously this time as somewhere nearby someone hurries past you. She raises a finger to her lips to signal quiet, seemingly waiting for something to happen. The nearest voices die down, and the nearest footsteps slow from a run to a careful walk. After a few moments, they fade completely, and even the bell stops ringing. Only then does the elf look at you all again. We have to hurry. My escape route won't stay safe for long. Thank you. How can we trust you? That's incredible. I'm all about giving thanks where thanks is due. Thank you. Because we probably wouldn't have made it out of there. Especially with Maitner, we wouldn't have made it out of there on our own. The elf looks at you sternly, but over the passing moments, you just make it out her expression softening. You can help me too. We will call it even, as you say. Now, we must go, quietly. Gratefully, you all follow the elf as she leads you through the fog towards the palisade. There is no sight or sound of your pursuers. With the fog, an eerie quiet has fallen over the village. It seems to affect those around you more than it does you personally. Estrid has tensed up and occasionally looks around as if she sees something you have not. Maitner doesn't speak either, though he seems more at ease than Estrid. In fact, the only one of your party who seems completely at ease is its newest member, the elf who guides you. When you reach the palisade, she takes another careful look around before grasping at one of the stakes carefully. It comes free of the rest of the palisade with no resistance, though she keeps a tight hold on it as she speaks. I had this planned for some time. That is the only explanation she will give as she indicates for you to squeeze through the gap. When you are all through, she ducks through after you, using a gouge in the outside of the stake to pull it back in place. Safely on the other side of the palisade, you are free to hurry once again. Even here, the fog lies thick on the ground, turning the land into a gray twilight where everything is a shadow. It is only when you step onto the beach that another call cries out from one of the watchtowers. A bell follows, and a chorus of voices spring up from behind the palisade after that. Now the four of you run for the skuta, trying to make it back to Gunnar and the others as quickly as you can. You find them all anxiously waiting your arrival, swapping looks between the gate and the encroaching fog. Gunnar is more than a little surprised to see you running towards him from the north. What is going on? Who in Swafner's name is this? There's no time. She's coming with us. Get the boat in the water. Quickly, get the boat in the water. We have to go now. As if to confirm your words, there's a loud thunk as the main gate starts to open behind you, and cries go out behind it. The elf leaps into the boat and heads straight for the prow as Gunnar curses loudly. Estrid calls the raiders to help her push the skuta back into the water and jumps in after her. Finally, you and Gunnar join them, taking up an oar and passing another to Estrid next to you. The waves surge beneath you as you all pull backwards as hard as you can get. The waves surge beneath you as you all pull backwards as hard as you can get away. Whatever. I know what they talking about. But with the help from the raider behind you, you quickly find a rhythm to escape the beach. The four of you all row as quickly and as hard as you can without losing that rhythm. You cannot tell for certain whether you are being followed, but you know it makes sense. Even as you escape the clutches of the elf's magical fog, which lies heavy on the water before you, you do not slow. Everyone is quiet, either too drained or too tense to talk. Gunnar stares suspicious daggers at the elf. When you can spare a moment, you glance back at her only to see that she's focusing on the fog and the shore. After a little while, though, you hear her clear her throat to speak. Well, we should be all right for a little while at least. It seems they do not wish to sail a boat through the fog. It will lift soon, but as long as we don't stop rowing, that should give us time to reach your ship. If you think you are walking aboard our ship with no explanation, elf, then you have another thing coming. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't throw you overboard now. Leave you to the souls of the drowned or the Thinkscari, whichever gets to you first. There are no drowned souls this time, Gunnar. The elf created the... Quiet! Maitner quickly and obediently falls quiet, glancing at the elf even as Gunnar scowls at her darkly. Oh my god. Like, Gunner be doing too much. Like, come on. Y'all would have been caught. Y'all would have been caught without her. Relax. You don't hear an immediate response from behind you, and Gunner begins to shift impatiently. She knows of the tooth. She knows of the tooth, Gunner. She was already in the Otchiska's vault when we arrived. As soon as she heard that that's what we were looking for, she tried to bargain with us. Part of which was to help us escape Haljanskar without being caught. Without her escape route and her magic, the Thixgari and the Otchiska would surely have caught us. I tried to be a woman of my word, and, well, I need the demon's tooth too much to be stopped here. And if you're searching for it too, then we can help each other. Why do you need it? Who are you? Thank you for your help. Who are you? Who are you? You never told us your name. Once again, you glance over your shoulder to look at the elf. Your question has her attention. That much you are sure of, but she seems hesitant to answer. If you must call me anything, then call me Darksong. Hey, Darksong! That's a cool last name. Hey, Darksong. I'm Nadim. Hey. That is hardly a name. Your name is Estrid. Okay, you my girl. I always got your back, but let's talk about it. Your name is Estrid. You really can't be out here talking about anybody's name. Darksong is a cool last name. Sound like you hating a little bit. Estrid. Darksong. It's all I have. Like, for real, what you want her to do? Change her name because you don't like it? Next to you, Estrid gives the elf one last skeptical glance before going back to the rowing glumly. Once again, the party falls into a thick and uncomfortable quiet, broken by the sound of the oars through the water. A moment passes before Darksong breezes past you, taking a seat where she can be seen by all in the skuta. She takes a good long look at the journal she has been carrying around with her since you met her. When I first picked it up in the vault, I had no way of knowing for certain that it was what I was looking for, but it held a place of importance in that room, and nothing else could possibly have been the key. When I heard that you say you were also looking for the tooth, and could not find it, I knew. It could not be a coincidence that we all find ourselves there looking for it. And if... what was her name? Ada? If she did not leave the tooth in Haljangsur itself, then she most certainly left a clue to its resting place. It must lie somewhere in this journal. Thorwallers do not keep journals. This is a ruse, so that we will take you with us without reason. I cannot read your script, so you must see for yourself, but I have no reason to lie to you. And the last thing I want to do is bring more misfortune down upon any of you. But before I give you this journal, I must know, what do you plan to do with it when your task is complete? When the fiend is dead. Oh! So she know about the fiend. Okay. How do you know that? Why are you helping us? How do you know that? How do you even know that the fiend has returned to be killed? I did not simply pick the demon's tooth to steal randomly. I did what I could to learn as much as I could about it in the hopes that it would help me find it. And in doing so, I learned that it is a weapon to be used against the fiend, which must means you want to kill it. Darksong looks from person to person, eagerly anticipating an answer. It is Maitner that eventually leans forward to reply to her. In good faith, I tell you that we have not thought that far ahead. We have barely had the chance. But I see no reason why it could not be returned to you for everything you have done for us. Darksong observes his steady gaze for a long moment before she nods and passes the journal to Maitner. Maitner very gently takes the book from her and begins to examine it, opening it with a single finger. His eyes flick across the page for a moment before he blinks, looks to the elf, and then back down at the page. He clears his throat before he reads aloud. This is the story of Ada Welkisdottir, Fionn Jot. All of that. Ada. This Ada journal. This her journal. All them names, I can't do it. It's too late. Too late at night. If you are reading this because you are hunted by the Restless One's fiend, know that we all wish you well. If you are reading this in the hope of finding and destroying the demon's tooth, know that we have done everything within our power to stop you. Maitner looks up at all of you, a look of disbelief and unbridled joy washing across his face. Next to him, Darksong looks at the floor of the skuta in what can only be described as relief. It is like hiding the journal in that vault, the last place any Thorwaller would look. He immediately goes back to the book, now flicking through it with more confidence and vigor. He beams as he looks from page to page like an excited child with a new toy. The rest of you can only wait in uncomfortable silence to see what he finds. You don't get an answer before you reach the Keenwolf. When you hop down onto the deck, it's relatively quiet, just a few of the crew keeping things maintained. Yurge is among them, and the first to lay his eyes on Darksong as she follows you onto the deck. Have you lost your minds? Yurge, what are you thinking? We can't sail with an elf. Others are all eyeing her up as well. One or two people even put a hand to their weapons. Oh, we don't like elves? We got a problem with elves? Elves is cool. They got magic and stuff. Even Estrid seems a little uncertain, stepping onto deck with a thoughtful, pained expression. We have little choice now. Gunnar hardly looks happy about it either, but he stops himself as he takes a look back at the rest of your party. With a sigh, he turns back to Yurge and speaks more directly. Without her help, our day would have been for nothing. Yurge, elf or not, we owe her for that. But, no buts. We are Thorwallers. Our word is still our oath, no matter who it is given to. Help unload the scooter. Get the supplies into the cargo hold. We sail at once. Maitnir, where are we going? Please tell me this whole voyage is not turning into a wild goose chase. Actually, our next stop is quite simple, Gunnar. Barely a hindrance to us, in the grand scheme of things. Well, at least getting there will be. Those tasked with unloading the scooter and cooling Yurge and those raiders who had been on deck all stop. So does the rest of your small thievery party. All of you wait with bated breath as Maitner finishes reading a passage from the journal and then nods. They hid the demon's tooth on the Alkenfelsen. There is a collective groan from everyone except you and Darksong, who scowls at the reaction. Even Estrid slumps at Maitner's words, dropping her head. At least it is close. But it is hardly simple, Maitner. It is certainly a hindrance. You have never heard of the Alkenfelsen and don't know what might warrant such a reaction. What's the Alkenfelsen? It is a famous death trap, Outlander. Navigating the waters there is nigh on impossible. You may not have time to be killed by the fiend if the ship has destroyed on those rocks. Ah, I see. That sucks. It's getting a little costly, huh? Getting a little costly. Without a doubt. Gunnar nods glumly, rubs his eyes, and then shakes his head. Very well. Make ready to sail for Alkenfelsen, and let us hope that we have no more poor fortune on the way. He takes one last glance at Darksong, who expertly avoids his gaze before he walks to Ulver's door. As the deck erupts into a flurry activity, you are once again left to your own devices, left to think on the consequences of a highly charged and highly contentious day. Ooh. You could talk to Maitnir, I could talk to the elf. This isn't Estrid. That's, what's her name? The head lady on the boat? Let's talk to Darksong. Far from home, at the end of another grueling day aboard the Keenwolf, you sit down to talk with the newest member of the Otjisko. Chapter, Far From Home. As you hustle into the galley for your evening meal, the noise of the crew's conversation only grows. Even with the new supplies collected in Haljingsor, you are confined to just one meal a day. It makes the galley a rally place as all those who work the Keenwolf during the day eat at once. That's crazy, because you do so much labor throughout the day. So that must be a massive meal to get you through the day. Like, that's all I could think of. Unless you, like, steal some bread and, like, keep on you. But I couldn't do all that labor and not, like, have, like, continuous breaks and water and food. Oh, jeez. For now, at least, the weather is holding, and that has made your day's work easier. But you are still relieved to sit and relax and enjoy whatever stew the cooks have managed to put together. Next to you, Esther stretches out her arms and then her shoulders as you both join the queue to collect food. I was hoping that after a while, I would start to get used to the physical effort of this life. I am not sure I'm ready to tackle the Alkenfelsen. And after that, we still have a long way to go. Will it really be that bad? But the weather is holding. It has only been a week. The weather holding? You gotta look at the positives. At least the weather is holding. That should make things a lot easier for us. As long as it lasts, yes, but winter is closing in quickly. That will bring more storms with it, and they will slow us down. More small talk follows as you shuffle forwards towards the small, crowded kitchen at the back of the galley. You're minding your own business when Estrid uses an elbow to tap your arm and pull your attention to a table. As you glance over there that way, you see Darksong, the elf you met in Haljingsor, sitting down with a bowl. She specifically chose a place away from everyone else, from where everyone else is sitting. Not even so much as looking around. After eating a spoonful of food, she takes out a knife and a block of wood no larger than her hand. Between mouthfuls, she starts carving at the block with a knife, her attention never leaving that work. Has she said anything to you all since coming aboard? You shake your head as you step even closer to the counter, now third or fourth in line for your stew. In fact, you haven't seen Darksong interact with anyone aboard the ship since she arrived. I mean, she's an elf. They clearly didn't want her there. She doesn't know anybody. They kind of given the we don't like elves vibe. I mean, she's already put herself at risk. She probably doesn't want to put herself at even more risk. Somebody be done threw her ass overboard. Like, she on a mission too. She's just putting up with y'all. And the crew haven't seemed to mind her staying out of the way either. Their superstitions well intact. See? She just, giving them a wide berth, that's all. No one has shown any aggression towards her, but it's very clear distance is certainly being maintained. She's avoiding trouble. It must be hard for her. She avoiding trouble. She's probably trying to stay out of trouble as best she can. You saw how Gunnar and George reacted to her being here. Esther takes a long moment to observe the elf working her way at crafting project while she eats. Well, she hasn't brought any more misfortune down on us yet. I say we talk to her. If nothing else, I would like to know more about what her stake in all this is anyway. Once you have finally collected your food, a dark fish stew that tastes better than it looks, you head over to her. At least the food good. It'd be hell if the food wasn't good on this boat. As the two of you sit down opposite her, she barely looks up from her work. But you do see her register your presence, her eyes quickly flickering from her knife to you and back again. With her hands and arms covered by her sleeve-length gloves, barely any of her is to be seen. But in the light of the galley, you see for the first time something you missed on the scooter back from Halsinger. Long, vicious scars creeping up both sides of her neck. They stop short of her chin and cheeks, but run all the way into the folds of her hood and leather armor. Whatever weapon made those marks, you imagine it must have been quite painful. Jesus. Even if they're small, they look wicked and very carefully drawn. One might even say deliberate. That thought stops you in your tracks as your eyes flick back up to Darksong. She stops her work to pull her hood tight around her neck with one hand, avoiding your gaze all the while. Don't pretend you haven't noticed. That only makes me feel worse. We just wanted to talk. Didn't mean to be rude. Sorry. That shit caught me off guard. That shit caught me way off guard. Sorry, girl. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. It's alright. I know they garner attention. May I ask what happened? Darksong's hand tightens around the hem of her hood again, visibly stretching the material of her glove. You see her swallow and look away from you both, focusing instead on her stew. She shakes her head as she takes another spoonful. I'd rather not speak of it, if it's all the same to you. Next to you, Estrid leans back in her seat and observes the elf for a moment longer before starting her own meal. Opposite you, Darksong uses both hands to pull her clothing up as much as she can. With the scars as hidden as they are ever going to be, she takes another couple of spoonfuls of stew. She then goes back to her woodwork, glancing up at the both of you from over the top of her small carving. I have been amongst humans long enough to know that we are not really trusted. I never fully understood why, but that is the way of it. As I said on the boat from Halsinger, I do not want to bring misfortune down on any of you. I simply wish to keep myself out of trouble long enough for you to use the demon's tooth. Then I could be on my way. You want the tooth? You seem to know a lot. You seem to know a lot about our situation. I'm still unclear as to how or why that is. Are you from Thorwall? There is an expulsion of air from her nose as she stifles a laugh, smiling at you softly. No. Back at where she's like, girl, no, I am an elf. I am not from these parts. You seen these people? And look at me. Look at me and look at them. Look at me. Look at them. I am not from around here. Back at work on whatever she is modeling out of the wood, she seems to think for a moment before replying. I was asked to retrieve the demon's tooth. The person who asked me to retrieve it knows far more about it than I do. I was only told as much as I needed to know. Or, at least, that is what I thought. As it turns out, even they don't know everything. She goes quiet again after that, chipping away at the model, a little angrily, if you were to guess. You look over at Estrid without saying a word, who's still wearing a face of great concern. You take a moment to try to piece together everything you've been told so far. Meanwhile, Darksong becomes completely unfazed by the extra mystery she is creating for you. She just keeps chipping, cutting, slicing away at her carving between mouthfuls of stew. Let's see, are you in trouble? Why was the tooth being sought? So you are a mercenary? Are you a mercenary? So you're some kind of mercenary. At that, you see her hand tighten around the hilt of a knife she's using. Her eyes flash with anger and then fear, and she takes a deep breath. Deep, completely silent breath in. No. She sets the knife down and leans back in her seat. One hand disappears out of view beneath the table, and another clutches the hem of her hood again. No, not a mercenary. I... She takes a moment to collect herself, pulling her hand back into view to set her project down on the table. You see the tiny form of a humanoid figure starting to take shape in the wood. Darksong looks at it for a long moment, too, before she glances up at both of you again. Nothing will be made easier or better by knowing more than you do. Please. Perhaps it seems a lot to ask because you don't know me, but I really do wish to keep my head down as much as possible as I can until this is over. Please don't ask me any more questions about this. You lean back at your seat, suddenly very conscious of how many questions you've been asking. We didn't ask that many. I feel like we only asked like 2-3 questions. We didn't ask that many. She can give us a little bit. She can give us a little bit. Next to you, Estrid, who is quite quiet in comparison, continues to look at Darksong closely. After a few moments, she leans forward, indicating the other members of the Ochusco. After a few moments, she leans forward, indicating the other members of the Ochusco in the galley. We're a very open people. We don't often keep secrets from each other, particularly when we need to live or work together. Sometimes that leads to disagreements, yes, but it also leads to trust. You need to understand that if you're going to survive this voyage, Darksong nods with a very clear understanding. Believe me, I have no intention to deliberately mislead you, but even people as open as you are have things they'd rather not talk about. She gives Estrid a steady look, as if trying to gauge whether or not she should continue. And then she does. If that weren't true, I do not think you would be here. Estrid is taken aback by the remark, staring at the elf with a shocked and stunned expression. Darksong collects up her figurine and the knife. Collects up her figurine and the knife she was using to carve it, as well as her now empty bowl. She gives you each one last look as she stands from her seat. Please excuse me. I feel like this could have went a lot better. I wanted us to be a trio of awesome people, and we're not. We are a broken faction of people looking for a demon tooth. Please excuse me. With that, and nothing else, she is away and gone, quickly scurrying away to give her bowl back to the kitchen. A few hours later, you awkwardly pull yourself into your hammock in the commons to try to get some sleep. It is quieter now than it was in the galley. Not everyone who is eating then will sleep now. Some will work for the first of the Keenwolf's night shifts, and some will stay up till morning. For you, though, the rest is necessary and welcome. You aren't sure why, but as the hammock rocks gently underneath you, you think a while. What Darksong said to Estrid has stuck in your mind. If that weren't true, I do not think you would be here. As to conclude on the point, even people as open as you are have things they'd rather not talk about. You have wondered what it was that drew the fiend to you. There was little more than a flash of a moment during Ulfger's feast in Alsfell, but it feels like a distant fading memory now. Yeah, she saw somebody in the hall that she knew. I do remember that. It was like a person, and my first thought it was her dad that like showed up and was like Nadim, and then he like disappeared, and then it was all spooky and stuff again. As the line of thought begins to slip away from you, you become aware of music. You hadn't realized that it was playing, and aren't sure at first where it's coming from. Lazily, your eyes begin to flick about the place, looking for the source of the incredibly soft melody. Perhaps it is a late-night piece being played above deck to help everyone relax. But no, it is not instrumental. It's smoother and more fluid, humming coming from inside the commons. You crane your neck around and see Darksong, her legs drawn up in her hammock as it rocks from side to side. She is once again working on her figurine, cutting away at the bottom half of the piece as she hums to herself. It doesn't seem to be bothering anyone. In fact, it is hard to tell who has even noticed and who has not. There's a duality to it, as you tune your ears to listen more closely. It is not like anything you've ever heard before. Every note has a near-perfect harmony, and you quickly lose track of where one ends and another begins. It is a strange tune. There is a lot of comfort and serenity in the piece, a relief that comes from familiarity and joy, but is not just joyful. It is melancholic, full of regret and loneliness, full of pain. As your eyes begin to droop, it is though those two strands part ways. Your heart sinks as your mind lifts up, and away, high above the Keenwolf. As your eyes flicker open, you're standing in the cold and dark of a wild forest. Okay, what's happening? Are we dreaming? Are we dreaming? What is this? Are we dreaming? This kind of elf magic? She's doing some kind of elf magic, or are we dreaming? We better be dreaming. You are not as cold as you should be from the mounds of snow piled up around you. We gotta be dreaming. The trees are burned barren and bare, and the night sky is clear. You hear the echoing, harmonious tunes of a song that bends in and out of the wind as it brushes past you. It feels so much like you know this place. It is comfortable, familiar, peaceful. It is like the fountain gardens of the in Rashtel. These, But this place is infinite in time as well as space. Head for the mountains, find the music forest, try to leave the forest. Let's find the music source. Your head turns westwards towards where you think the music is coming from. You can't be certain, for different layers of the harmony bend and turn past your ears to deceive you. But it feels right, and you start trudging off that way, picking yourself through the fallen branches and broken roots. But the further you walk, the more uneasy you begin to feel. The music shifts with you, too. It is only faster at first and makes you walk on the chosen path more quickly with more purpose. But the music shifts again quickly. It becomes erratic, and the distance between the two strands of duality grows and warps around you. Can we wake up? If you find yourself running as your heart fills with fear. We were having a nice tune. What's going on now? What if this is it for the rest of your life? What if this is all there is? This isn't your home. That academy was never really home. It can not have been. There's too much pain and loss here. Too much sorrow. You have to get out. You have to run. There will never be anything else. And with that, the ache firmly at the center of your mind, you shake yourself awake. You nearly rock yourself out of your hammock before you catch yourself and start to steady. It is deathly quiet. There is no humming, no echo of music, just the gentle breathing of those who sleep around you and the lantern-lit commons. You take another look at Darksong, turning around just to be sure that the humming has really stopped. She lies just as quietly as anyone else, her eyes firmly closed as she cuddles herself tightly. Your heart still racing, you collapse back down into your hammock, staring at the wooden supports of the ceiling. It feels like a long while before you manage to get sleep again, but sleep you do. And all throughout your dreams, you are haunted by a distant sorrow of painful and melancholic regret. Regret about leaving the academy? Or regret about ever going to the academy? I'm confused. Okay, that was it. Where did we at? We're about 52 minutes. All right, I'm going to end it there. I don't know if this video is going to be its own part or if I'm attaching this to the last video, but I'm going to go ahead and give you a little outro. If you enjoyed this playthrough, go ahead and leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you're new here. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Bye!